it would be good to hear from our emergency manager, maybe even get on the agenda. But they switched system at some point from Alert Sense to something else. And funny, when I was on Alert Sense and I was always saying, hey, all I get are the wolf advisories, I never get anything else. When they switched to this new one, I got stuff. I got some of the fire related warnings and wind stuff and serious stuff. So we need to figure that out.
So why haven't we been informed? Or
I didn't know that you guys weren't getting it, but suddenly I was getting more than I had gotten.
That we get told, we don't know either. So.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Really?
I appreciate that. And obviously, yeah, we need.
You haven't been excluded from nothing. I mean, like, you know,
Not
we'll talk about the spring, you're put back on, that's all still the same. Nothing's changed.
Yeah, and the other issue that I guess is that, you know, there's 5 RFPAs. And so we're actually the only one I know of that's using the Alert Sense or was using it. So we're kind of spearheading for the other RFPAs, but we need an invoice to pay. You know, we're a voting entity and we're supposed to be paying in, but I haven't got anything to pay off of. So that was the other issue.
You should be paying for the Alert Sense. That's not.
It was part of the whole 911 system.
But I think, if I remember they were allowed back in, we weren't gonna charge you guys. So,
Okay,
so
well-
I don't think you're missing the bill.
Okay,
And we, as far as county did, we still agreed to pay for our
yeah. Okay,
our section
Yeah.
guys places, but I'm pretty sure the committee voted not to have you guys pay,
okay.
that you're still part of it. You're still a
All right.
voting member, you're still a voting member. That was agreed upon at that 911 meeting.
Okay,
Okay. But we'll follow up on this. I mean, it's
All right.
definitely, if we don't know, we can't fix it. So
yeah,
I don't
Okay.
think there's anything intentional. It's just something's wrong.
okay, thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Cheryl.
There's one up here.
Oh, okay.
Completely untouched.
Oh, thank you.
So-
Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
There was 2.
So the piece under opportunity for public comment, public records request, Harney County Sassville request for this letter to public record for the county court meeting. So Tim Smith has sent us an email yesterday. He wanted it to be, he's got 2 asks here. He wants his records request made part of today's record. And then he has some questions about who our legal counsel is.
Okay.
So number 1 was please add this letter to the public record for the next county court meeting. And I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but I will capsulize that he asked for a public records request. Our normal protocol is to go through, if they're large, we go through, well, legal counsel handles them all. If it's large, it has to go to our IT folks, and then there's a fee. And the fee was pretty large. He doesn't want to pay the fee, and his letter states to that effect why he shouldn't have to pay that fee, and it's doing this for the citizens of Harney County. Does that cover pretty much the gist of his letter on that part?
I
You guys,
have to look at it to make sure.
That was the essence of what he was getting at. He felt that the fee was unreasonably high
Right.
for the type of information that he was wanting.
I believe it was 3,400, was it 3,600?
And that, you know, hurts everybody, whoever needs or wants to do that it might be out of reach financially.
Right.
To do a records request.
And it has to do with I mean, I went back for like 2 years, several email requests, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's a lot to the request. They've been working, and I really can't get involved in that because I don't know. So he's been going back and forth with legal counsel.
And is there a specific subject that he had?
It had to do with-
Around the staff.
Has
It's
around the
really not-
communication
okay,
around the
sorry, all right, that's what I assumed, but then when, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
Second Amendment. Okay.
Acronym.
So-
You gotta love them.
Part 2 was please explain and define your understanding of the relationship between the Corolla Law Group, current inherited counsel to the county court, and Ron Yoakum Law Firm, past counsel to the county court, in regard to Genesis operations and financial relationship between the 2 law firms. Yoakum Law Firm was our natural resource attorney that was retained on retainer at $2,000 a month for years in the past. Mr. Yoakum retired. Dominic Carrillo was
An associate.
associate, that's what I wanted, in his office. He took over the business. Last September, our legal counsel, or county counsel had been former DA Tim Cohen. Tim retired. Our new incoming DA at that point didn't want to take that on because he's a new incoming DA and a lot of other things he felt he needed to focus on. So we put out our RFPA. Dominic Corolla office applied, and they were accepted and awarded the bid to be our legal counsel. So Yoakum retired, associate took over. That is who our county counsel is. And financial relationship, he had continued the natural resource part of it, the $2,000 a month. He reduced that to $1,000, and his retainer is $5,000 a month. So it's actually pays $6,000 a month for our county council fee. That Genesis operations financial, I think that explains. But Mr. Smith is after.
So is a copy of that letter in the PDF packet?
Yes, yes, yeah, it just came in yesterday afternoon.
I
Let
just
me
didn't-
confirm, so I
just
didn't open
print it,
another
so
one up.
that'd be good. Perfect.
Okay. So I think that
I just didn't-
addresses Jim's concerns. You guys agree?
Yeah, unless he has further questions, and obviously isn't here, so. he
And I
can-
emailed him back, told him
Some follow-ups.
I would answer his questions.
I think the fact that it's accessible now in the packet is.
It's part of the record. Okay,
I have a public comment, Chris Weisman.
Okay.
One question about the South. So currently it's in an executive session, which means you guys are not able to discuss it to the public. Is that correct?
Because of the potential litigation,
Because of the potential litigation.
not potential, just the litigation.
The litigation, correct? Okay. So there's no way to get any update out to the public, period. That is what announced.
I mean, if
That's
you would
correct.
like to see the deal, you can go to any, the news media that got it before us and read through it just like we
Not
had
into- yeah,
to.
No, I already seen what their argument was. And
Yeah, I
that's-
mean,
that
other
is
than
what it
that,
is.
that's really, there's just lots of points of discussion that we have to find out before we can figure out a path forward, so.
Okay, so again, I mean, I know Tim spent a lot of time on this and was in here quite a bit with you guys, trying to work through what would and wouldn't work, could work. And towards the end, it got very difficult. And I know a large amount of public had to show up, it seems like, to get it passed. So I know there's some personal feelings that may think that it's not worth fighting for on the board. But I would like to reassure you guys that a lot of this county, a lot of the public here does not want to have 554 and beyond. No more. And this is one of the issues we had with writing it, which the city councils looked at and had a hard time with, is it wasn't a particular law putting for reference of what the SASSA was supposed to be stopping, because there was so many, and then they just all got jumbled together and thrown in. So.
Passed after February.
Correct. Well, and there's more still coming. Ammunition registration, magazine limits, and anyway, so there's a reason why. After going to almost every public event I think we've had here for the last year, I've heard, except for the two people that stood in this room that day, I've heard no one say they don't. So I want to remind you guys that that's where the public sentiment is. And
thank you.
I understand your desire to know a little more than you already know, and that is one of the things we will, bring up to our county council again, just to make sure we understand what messaging and what conversation can we have
And
while we're in this space.
right, and while while you're under this, the ordinance is still in effect, correct?
At this time it is. yes.
that would be a good piece of information for the public to find out somehow. Besides obviously showing up here like we do.
Well, and you gotta remember, they sent that out on the first of the month, and so it does take our legal counsel time to go through all that to provide us any, potential paths forward. So So we're just as anxious as the public is to, understand more about what to do.
Absolutely.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Okay, we have folks on, we ran over on our public comment, but that's, we never know how it's gonna be. So we're going to get Karen.
What's that?
Go tell Karen
Karen? Yep.
we're ready.
Yep.
Okay. So, sorry, city manager. Moving on to item 4, there's no old business scheduled. On the agenda, item 5 is new business. And we have Lane Howard on Zoom, Dan Brown, city manager Burns, to present the potential or upcoming Burns urban renewal plan. I asked Dan to come to us once the letter came out for an explanation. Just so it's out, there's more detail and the benefits it brings to the city and the county overall. So can you all hear us that are on there?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's just begin.
Okay, thanks, Judge. I'll get us started and then I'll turn it over to Elaine. This process for the Urban Renewal Agency, the idea was actually hatched through the city, with the city council starting the strategic planning process that we underwent starting in January of this year. And it was more to work on infrastructure issues, find out what other jurisdictions have done throughout the state that have worked well and get some feedback. And the number one goal of our city council was to eradicate blight, to make the city of Burns a more welcoming, visually place for people to come to. And so that broached this conversation of, well, what can we do that's available to us? And we looked at some other cities that have implemented an urban renewal agency. And then the direction was given from council to move forward back in July through an ordinance to declare the city of Burns a blighted area, and then create a urban renewal area within the city of Burns. We hired Elaine Howard, who's a consultant with that has set up numerous urban renewal agencies within the state of Oregon. And I'm going to let her take it away because she's going to kind of give a quick overview of what urban renewal agency is, what it means, and then how our local agency is proposed to be set up. And I will note that tonight we have a planning commission meeting. And that's the next step tonight at 6 p.m. and that's open to the public. And then the legislative body, which is the city council, will meet on this and have a public hearing on November 10th. So we're following a close timeline to make sure that we're in compliance with state law. And from that, I'll turn it over to you, Elaine.
Thank you. And I had sent through a PDF, and I'm not sure whether I get to share my screen or you guys want to control that. So let me know how that works.
I believe we're going to share from this end. Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
Well, that's not my picture, but it's interesting.
It's a good picture.
She's working on it.
That's Carrie's picture. Oh, that's Harney County.
While she's working on it, I'll introduce myself. I'm Elaine Howard. As Dan said, I have been working with Tiberius Solutions, who is a subcontractor that works with me on all urban renewal projects, working with the city to look at the potential of an urban renewal area within the city. We are required to actually brief you on this. The county receives a formal briefing, and in that briefing, we are required to let you know what the proposed maximum indebtedness is, and we'll get to that on one of the slides when we get to the PowerPoint. So I'm still seeing the branding.
They're working on it.
Okay. If it's easier, Or I don't know what your protocols are, but I could share my screen if it's easier.
Yeah, if you can share from your end, that would be fine. I just thought they were gonna give you the ability to make you host.
You have to make a post.
Okay,
I don't think I'll make host.
There's the buttons. Right, so
Yeah.
I'll share it.
I also wanted to note that City Councilor Jen Keaty is also listening to this and may have some input as we move along. And she is also chair of the Urban Renewal Agency.
In Elaine, for note, Judy Irwin's also here. She's another counselor, and she's in the audience here.
Okay, great. Oh, okay. Do you see the screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So thank you, and we will continue. So what we are covering is just, we thought it would be very helpful to explain what urban renewal is, since it hasn't been used in your county before. So we'll go over a little crash course, Urban Renewal 101. We'll talk about how an urban renewal plan is adopted, go over some of the project examples within this urban renewal plan, proposed plan, what the county impact is, and what the next steps are. So basically, urban renewal is an economic development tool. It's a financing mechanism that helps cities implement projects. By statute, it is used to address blighting influences in specific areas, and blight is defined in the statute. In Burns, that blight is underdevelopment of property and the need for rehabilitation of existing buildings and some infrastructure needs. Urban renewal functions on increases in property tax revenues in urban renewal areas. It is presently used all over Oregon. This shows a map of the cities with urban renewal. Since this map was done, the city of John Day has created an urban renewal area. So you can see in Eastern Oregon, there are other areas. And we are also working with Lakeview on a potential area. Cities decide to use urban renewal because they have needs to deal with blighting conditions, but they have no funding source to do that. The city general funds typically don't have enough money to address the needs for creating additional housing or rehabilitating buildings. And urban renewal provides that funding source to bridge the gap between what is affordable by private developers and what isn't affordable, and provide those incentives to get development to happen in your community. Again, urban renewal is based off of property tax revenue. In Oregon, the property tax revenue goes to the regular taxing jurisdictions like the city, the county. I see you also have the hospital administrator in attendance and the hospital. Property tax revenue in Oregon goes up for two reasons. One, a 3% allowed appreciation every year of your assessed value. Some years that doesn't happen, but typically most properties go up about 3% annually. And any substantial improvements, including new construction. When an urban renewal area is formed within a city or a county, counties can also initiate them. The dynamic changes. So the property tax revenue off of the increased value within that urban renewal area. So just the increased assessed value and just within the urban renewal area shown in that blue, go to the Urban Renewal Agency to do projects and programs within that area. The property taxes off of the value of the properties at the time the urban renewal area is established continue going to the regular taxing districts. So you do not lose any of your current revenue source. What the other property taxing districts lose is that increased value within the area. And again, most directly, that increased value is typically that 3% appreciation. For the properties that we put in the potential burns area, a lot of those properties aren't increasing at that 3%. They are vacant properties. There is nothing happening on them. And unless there are incentives or infrastructure projects that occur, those property values aren't going to be going up. This just shows that concept in a different kind of graphic. So on the bottom, it shows the frozen base and shows that that is the value of the property at the time it is adopted. The urban renewal plan is adopted. The increment is the potential value increases over time. And it is only on that small portion of the assessed value that the urban renewal agency takes their funds. The important thing to the urban renewal agency and why urban renewal is so effective is that they are able to then leverage their own property tax rate, which is shown as 27% of the total property tax rate for people who live in Burns, by the other property tax rates within their locality. So they get off of that increased assessed value, 100% of the taxes off of that growth. And again, those monies have to be spent within the urban renewal area to improve the conditions and to provide for future growth within that area and future assessed value upon which all property taxing districts will receive taxes. An urban renewal area functions off of an income source, and that income source is the yearly property tax collections based on the growth within the area. They develop a budget every year, just like the city would develop a budget that has their projects, programs, and administration. And they have a spending limit. That limit is capped by what is called maximum indebtedness. Maximum indebtedness for this proposed area is $30,300,000 over a 30-year time frame. And that is the total amount of money that the city, through the urban renewal agency, may spend on projects within that area. Once they reach that maximum indebtedness, the urban renewal area is terminated. All of that increased value goes back on the property tax rolls for all of the other taxing districts to use. Okay, it's not letting me move down. So a property tax summary is there are no new taxes to property tax payers as a result of urban renewal. The burden is on the other taxing districts. Schools are indirectly impacted by urban renewal, and I have a couple of slides that follow this to explain that. If that plan is adopted, there will be a line item on every property tax bill of people who own property in the city of Burns. And it will show the division of taxes and the amount of money that goes to the urban renewal agency. Bonds and local option levies are not impacted by any new urban renewal plan, only the permanent rate levy. So if the county or anybody else has a bond or a local option levy, it is not impacted by this urban renewal area. Again, the impact is to the property taxing districts. They do not get money off of the new value. They forego that money over the life of the urban renewal area. One of the key things to remember in urban renewal is all of our tables are based on growth happening because of the expenditures. And that growth may not, and in some cases, in areas where you have not seen growth, probably would not occur but for the ability of urban renewal to invest in your community. Do you want me to stop here? Have any questions or finish the presentation?
Any questions in the room right now?
I actually do have a question about how the decision was, so like at the county court level, the decision was
This
made.
is
The
not
Burns, I'm
Burns.
sorry,
City.
I'm sorry, going back to Burns. So the Burns City Council decided that they wanted to establish this urban renewal agency and go forward with it. Do the voters at any point get to have a say on the establishment of the agency and having their increased property taxes go to an urban renewal agency rather than staying with the divisions that are right now funding?
Sure, indirectly, because this is a state law that was enacted by the voters years ago. And so that's kind of how that works. And Elaine, do you have any more to say on that question?
Yes. Urban renewal, the authority to establish an urban renewal agency and area is vested in the city council. They have that authority to do without a vote of the community. And I think you understand the person who said that by saying your increased property taxes. So that's just what would happen with or without an urban renewal area. Your property taxes
Right.
don't go up. Yeah. So yes,
Right.
there is that impact on the other taxing districts, and no, it is not required to be voted on by the electorate. However, you may go to the public hearing and testify to the city council. Always may do that.
And if I may
Who's the
add,
boss?
sorry, if I can
Go
just
ahead.
add something, and Elaine, corrects me if I'm wrong, but if there's a property owner within the urban planning area and they do not want to be part of the project that we're working on, they can opt out. Am I correct? If they're a property owner within the urban renewal area and they don't want their money or their increase to go to the project we're working on, they can opt out.
No, an urban renewal boundary is set, and all of,
Getting in there.
no, that would be a nightmare for the assessor's office to have some people opt out. Not, so no, if someone absolutely wanted to not be in an urban renewal boundary, we could remove their property from the boundary area. But the reality is that is not going to change anything about urban renewal and the fact that it's still on their property tax bill. And it then would preclude them from getting any benefit from the area in the future.
Okay,
So there's no good reason. If anybody ever wanted to do that, I would like to have a conversation with them, because there's no positive benefit for them doing that.
Well, thank you, Dan and Elaine, for answering my question.
I have one comment too. This is Judy Irwin. It's my understanding that property taxes will not increase simply by being in the urban renewal area. It only increases if there is improvement to the property, correct?
That's correct. There is no property tax increase as a result of being in the urban renewal area. It's only whatever your property would have increased anyway by the assessor's office.
Right.
Thank you. And sometimes it's good to stop and just clarify a couple of things as we move forward to help frame the rest of the discussion. So
Who's in charge? Who would be in charge to make sure that the urban renewal district is doing what it is supposed to be doing with the funds?
that's a good question. The urban
Or
renewal
the checks
area.
and balances go on that?
Okay, I'll answer that question, and then it would be helpful if we then wait for other questions till we're done with the presentation. But on the urban renewal agency is the same as the Burns City Council. So they are